Part 22. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 211. Chapter 211 Eating my brother's dog food. The next morning, Mu Xiao and Mu Xiaoyue got up early. Mu Xiaoyue smiled and said, "Let's go see what we can eat. I made a trap yesterday, and the tide should be low now." After saying that, she pulled him away and walked towards the place where the trap was made yesterday on the beach. He felt the warmth coming from his hand and subconsciously held his hand tightly. I looked at the other students with some embarrassment, but luckily they didn't wake up. He likes the light fragrance on his body, which makes him feel very comfortable. I slept very comfortably last night because he slept next to me, so this night, he slept very comfortably. The two walked to the beach, and he happily looked at the stranded fish. "Xiao, look, there are a lot of fish. Your breakfast is ready today. Let's go catch fish quickly." He happily took off his shoes and reached out his hand to catch fish in the water. The two of them threw the fish ashore one by one, and finally picked them up on the shore. I used small tree sticks to string up the fish, and made a simple basket with coconut leaves. Tie the crabs with coconut leaves and put them neatly into a simple homemade net bag. After landing on the beach, the two of them sat on the rocks to dry their feet. As a result, Mu Xiaoyue took the shoes naturally and put them on for Mu Xiao. "Be careful if you catch a cold. It's no joke if you don't have spiritual power." Mu Qingjian, who was watching all this, did not expect to see the scene when she got up early, and was caught off guard by the dog food. The entire screen felt like a pink romantic love. Sure enough, the two children had grown up, and she felt like an old mother at this moment. The two of them didn't know that their every move was under the watchful eye of their sister. Fortunately, the drone was protected by her divine power. With the strength of the two of them, it is natural that they cannot detect the existence of the drone and cannot see it. Other students also got up one after another and saw that the two people were missing. Several people looked for the two people nearby. It turned out that they were at the beach. The two greeted them, and the group went back together carrying food. When the boys returned to the camp carrying abundant food, the girls saw that they had plenty of food when they woke up in the morning, and they were very grateful to them. Wu Tao was extremely excited. "Haha, I feel like there are only two people, Mu Xiao and Mu Xiaoyue, so we don't need to worry about food. Haha. So this is the reason why you are lazy. We have no fresh water, and there are no coconuts nearby." Zhang Yu looked worried. "Hey, Zhang Yu, can't you cooperate?" Wu Tao looked disgusted. Zhao Jiarui looked at the sky. "The weather is good today. We can go into the forest to find fresh water nearby, otherwise we will all die of thirst in this weather." "Indeed, let's go after breakfast. Having food but not water is also a problem." Zhang Yu agreed with her point of view. Su Jiayan was a little disgusted among them. "The forest is full of mosquitoes. What if there are wild beasts and poisonous snakes? We'd better not go. There's food here. Why should we suffer like that?" Mu Xiaoyue glanced at her and said, "Except for her who doesn't want to go, who else among you doesn't want to go? If you don't want to go, just stay here with her. For the others, they will set off after breakfast." Everyone smiled and held up the food. "Let's go together. After all, we all survive together, we can't rely on you two all the time." So everyone, except her, didn't want to go. "I'm not the only one staying here. What will I do if you all leave?" Su Jiayan said angrily. Mu Xiaoyue looked at her coldly. "You are the one who wants to stay, so if you stay, no one will stop you. Everyone thinks she is being unreasonable. How could such a person exist?" After everyone had breakfast, they packed up their things and prepared to set out to find water. No one cared whether she was going or staying. After all, no one loved her and she was not theirs. As Zhao Jiarui left, he turned around and said to her, "Are you sure you are here alone? We may not come back." Su Jiayan screamed in panic, "Why didn't you tell me just now? Did you want to abandon me?" She was completely stunned by the circuitry of her brain. "Whatever you think, unless you want to be eliminated by the teacher." She hurriedly packed her things and trotted to keep up with the large army. Mu Xiao was irritated by the quarrel about how vicious they were. He turned around and walked up to her, quickly grabbing her neck with his hands. "Shut up, you want to die? If you want to die, I will help you right now. If you keep chirping with me, this is what you will end up with." After saying that, he punched the poisonous snake on the tree behind Su Jiayan, lifted the body of the poisonous snake and threw it into her arms. I was so frightened by his look that I almost fell down. It was such a scary look. She just felt that he really wanted to kill her. She looked down and saw that Mu Xiao had just thrown something red to her. "Ah, snake, snake." She was so frightened that she dropped the snake in her arms and screamed. He looked over at her, and she covered her mouth in horror, trembling with fear. Mu Xiao looked satisfied when he saw that he had become more honest. "Isn't that good? Screaming and screaming on an undeveloped desert island simply feels like your fate is high." Mu Xiaoyue picked up the handkerchief he carried with him and wiped his hands. "Xiao, don't do this in the future. It's not worth hurting yourself." "I know, I'm fine, I can't just die without saving someone." Although he didn't like her, he was a classmate after all, so he couldn't see her being bitten. Mu Xiaoyue has a relatively cold temperament, and he doesn't really meddle in other people's business. In his eyes, there are only him, his sister and the Bo family. Even his feelings for his parents are relatively weak. After all, their family relationship is basically so cold. Mu Qingjian, who was in front of the screen, smiled helplessly when she saw that her brothers were so ignorant of compassion. Luo Lei on the side looked admiringly, "Boss, I think Mu Xiao and Mu Xiaoyue are the two in our class. I like them very much. They have great strength and leadership style." She smiled with an arrogant look on her face, "You don't even know whose younger brother they are. Why don't you be my younger brother and be better?" Luo Lei said in surprise, "Boss, they are your brothers, why didn't we know?" He looked at the three of them back and forth. Mu Xiaoyue was a foreigner, unlike her. After looking at Mu Xiao and looking back and forth, he found that the two of them did look somewhat similar. Why didn't he notice it? "Boss, that Mu Xiao is your brother, what about Mu Xiaoyue?" She sighed and said, "I thought you should know why you are so stupid without me having to say anything." Luo Lei was embarrassed to touch his head, "Hey, I didn't pay attention." "Okay, it's okay." The two of them continued to watch the screen, watching the progress of this special training class. Thanks to Book Friend 74 for sending me a monthly pass. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 212. Chapter 212 Encountering Danger. More than a dozen people walked along and encountered many dangerous animals, except for Mu Xiaoyue and Mu Xiao who took action. Wu Tao and Zhang Yu also solved a lot of problems. It seems that they are not simple people. After all, people who can enter the special training class can't be so simple, so they all behave more steadily than others. The group of people walked and stopped along the way, and finally found the source of water. There was a huge waterfall not far away. Everyone ran to the bottom of the waterfall in surprise. "Wow, it's fresh water, haha, we found fresh water, can we drink it directly?" Everyone squatted on the rocks and washed their faces with water, sighing comfortably. At this time, Mu Xiaoyue said indifferently, "Don't drink raw water in the wild unless you have no choice. Water that looks clean may not be clean. For safety reasons, we should boil water before drinking it." Luo Lei in front of the screen said excitedly, as expected of the boss's younger brother, he has a good sense of survival in the wild. Mu Qingjian was eating ice cream, "Well, it's necessary. If they drink raw water directly, they will definitely be the ones who suffer. Without any common sense, I will definitely criticize them. Hee, boss, you have very high requirements for the two of them. This is not a question of height, but a question of common sense. This is an undeveloped desert island, and you cannot be careless for a while. Logole said with approval, boss is right, but how did you find this place? As your boss, you still have to find a place to train, otherwise, how can I be worthy of being called boss? He touched his head sheepishly, that's right. The special training class on the other side are all looking for something that can boil water. Everyone, come here and take a look at this stone, it looks like a pot, we can use it to boil water. Lin Xiaoxiao patted the big pot-like stone. Su Heron walked back and said, it does look similar, Lin Xiaoxiao, her eyes are pretty good. Zhao Jiarui pulled Su Jiayan and said, I'll take her to pick up dry branches. She'll be back soon. After that, he pulled her away. A few boys are responsible for lighting the fire, while the rest are responsible for building temporary shelters. Everyone considered that it would be troublesome if there were wild animals. So I planned to build it in the middle of several trees. The boys would be responsible for chopping the wood, and the girls would be responsible for helping pull it on one side. Everyone worked together and quickly built a 3-story wooden house. The basics were done. Mu Xiaoyui and Mu Xiao took the 3 boys together to look for food. The fire was also lit, and the remaining people began to organize themselves to find branches with large leaves and build wooden houses. After Zhao Jiarui and Su Jiayan came back, they also helped find branches together. After several hours, they finally got it done. The water was also boiled. Several people drank the water and took a comfortable bath under the waterfall. A few women were also bathing together while still fully clothed. After all, fresh water resources were rare, so it was good to take a simple bath. Several people were motionless in the tree when they saw prey with hooks. Wu Chao raised his hand with a dagger tied to its root and stabbed it hard. The prey barked a few times and then died motionless. Zhang Yu patted him on the shoulder and said, damn, that's not bad. The stab was quite accurate. It hit the heart right. Fortunately, let's go back, we've caught a lot, and I'm afraid the blood will attract large animals, he said with some worry. He jumped down and lifted the other end. Okay, let's go. I'm almost fainting from hunger. He shook his head helplessly, carrying a few pheasants, and planned to find Mu Xiao and others to gather. By the time everyone sees them returning home with their loads, everyone has become accustomed to it. Several people caught the wild boar and prey, and handled them with clear division of labor, and they already cooperated perfectly. Lin Xiaoxiao handed them water in a bamboo tube. You must be thirsty. Drink water quickly, just boiled hot water. They took the bamboo tube and said, thank you. I happen to be thirsty. Thank you. Mu Xiaoyui said his thanks while drinking hot water. She shook her head and said, you're welcome, this is what I should do. Su Jiayan saw her acting like a slave and felt that she was really humiliating the other girls. But now she didn't dare to say anything more and could only complain silently in her heart. Everyone sat around the fire and ate food happily. The sky was getting dark, so they ate and drank well. After washing, they went back to the small tree house to rest. After a busy day, several people lay down comfortably on the wooden beds and fell asleep. Mu Xiaoyui and Mu Xiao, who were sleeping on a layer of wood, always felt a sense of danger. The two of them decided not to sleep tonight and just practice. It was almost dawn at last, and they were still full of energy after a sleepless night. It seemed like they were worrying too much. Except for some herbivores coming to drink water one night, there were basically no problems. When Mu Xiao jumped down gently from the 3rd floor, Mu Xiaoyui beside him also opened his eyes. After cleaning up, they stood up and followed him closely. The two of them didn't know what they were going to do. Su Jiayan looked surprised when she saw the two sneaky people. They must be doing something bad. He quickly got up and followed him secretly. This was big news. A special soldier who was keeping watch at night saw that they stopped sleeping and went out one after another, so he was curious and took pictures with a drone. He was curious and followed him secretly, and because of his impulse, he took a shocking scene. The two of them stood on the tree and looked at the giant tigers in front of them with red eyes. It's obvious that they are mutated monsters. After all, normal tigers are not that big. Just as the two were about to take action, they heard a scream in the distance and said, "Ah, there's a tiger." This woman Su Jiayan arrived at some unknown time. She was a man who wanted to die, and this immediately alarmed the tigers. It was better now. The disturbed giant tigers suddenly rushed towards her violently. When the two saw the dead woman, they quickly planned to save her. Su Jiayan ran straight towards them, screaming as she ran. She turned around with fear on her face and quickly pushed Mu Xiaoyui, who was about to help her, into the tiger's mouth. The tiger bit his arm. He stabbed the tiger in the eye with the dagger in pain and kicked the giant tiger away. Mu Xiao quickly stepped forward to save him and helped him up. "Su Jiayan, you are sick." The two of them were completely unable to stop her seeking death, and the tiger started attacking her again. Su Jiayan, who was close, ran to them crazily and planned to use Mu Xiaoyui as a substitute. Mu Xiao kicked Su Jiayan away. In her frightened eyes, she flew out and hit the tree behind her. She immediately vomited blood and fell into coma. I'm afraid she suffered internal injuries even if she didn't die. He turned around and stabbed it, directly destroying the other eye. Several monster tigers started to attack them directly. The scene between the two and several giant tigers was like filming a movie. Because their spiritual power was sealed by Mu Qingjian, they could not use their spiritual power. This is her requirement for their experience. After all, if they use spiritual power, then the experience will be too easy for them. So this time the two of them can only rely on themselves and their own strength to deal with them, and they cannot use spiritual power wantonly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 213. Chapter 213 I miss you for my husband. Early when the strange tiger was discovered, the special forces woke everyone up and quickly asked people to come over to help. When Mu Qingjian said that a tiger appeared from the special forces, she took Luo Lei and some people on a plane and rushed to the scene. Luo Lei got off the helicopter and rushed to Su Jiayan. "Boss, she is seriously injured, what should I do?" "Don't worry if you don't die." She coughed up blood after waking up, and then fell unconscious again, frightening the special forces present to death. Mu Qingjian picked up the special forces gun and started shooting at the monsters. One after another, the monster tigers fell to the ground. Luo Lei and everyone looked surprised. That was it? She quickly came to the two of them. "Are you okay?" Mu Xiao looked worried when he saw her. "Sister, teacher, Rui was bitten, will he be okay?" Mu Xiaoyui smiled and said, "I'm fine, Xiao, teacher, don't worry." Mu Qingjian took out a bottle of medicine from her pocket, but she actually took it out of space. "You'll be fine after eating this." He took the elixir and the wound soon stopped bleeding. She took another pill, crushed it into powder, and sprinkled it on his wound. The wound healed slowly and formed a scar. "Okay, let's continue the challenge." Luo Lei looked at the unconscious Su Jiayan. "Boss, what should she do?" "We don't have medical staff here," she vomited blood. Mu Qingjian took out a pill and fed it to her. Su Jiayan was eliminated and quit the special training class because she used her teammates as a shield. Now everyone felt sorry for her. After all, betraying teammates in the army was the most shameful thing. Several people carried her out. Musaorui and Musaao continued their mission, and the giant monster tigers were also carried away. The special training class who had heard the gunshots early had also rushed over early to take a look. Then she saw Mukinjian. When she saw them all coming, she said sternly, "Su Jiayan has been eliminated. The 14 of you will continue to challenge. If anyone betrays his teammates to survive, the final result will be elimination." The others looked confused, but they also knew that she was eliminated because she sold out her life. After she left, a group of people immediately gathered around the two of them, and after some inquiring, they found out the truth of the matter. Everyone continued to return to the waterfall. The loss of Su Jiayan did not matter to them. In a blink of an eye, it was 11 o'clock in the evening again. It was getting late, so everyone went to bed one after another. Suddenly it rained heavily at night, and everyone was frightened and woke up, staying there for an hour. Looking at the slowly rising river water, they knew they had to leave the riverside. "Everyone, it's raining heavily. It's estimated that this place will be flooded by sea water. We have to leave here quickly. Everyone packs up their belongings and we are going to change camp again." The girls looked at the heavy rain outside and said, "It's so dark and it's raining heavily. Where can we go?" The boys put their backpacks on their backs and said, "Let's wait until we leave here. We can't stay here any longer." Everyone had no choice but to carry their belongings and leave the safe haven and continue into the dark woods. The girls were all very scared. Everyone followed Musaao and Musaorui all the way. Along the way, they encountered many dangerous animals. Fortunately, they were just passing by and did not attack anyone. Everyone was soaked by the rain, but they still had to continue looking for a new place to camp and rest. Finally we saw a cave, and we walked in one after another to take shelter from the rain. Considering the presence of wild animals, everyone surrounded the entrance of the cave with thorny branches. At this time, the fire was finally lit, and everyone gathered around the fire to keep warm, lamenting the difficulty of making this bowl. It wasn't until daybreak and the rain stopped that they went out to look for food. On the other side, Mukinjian stood alone on the beach, admiring the morning after the rain. When Han Yexuan came over to deliver breakfast in the morning, Luole looked polite when he saw him. He pointed to the rocks on the seaside. "Boss, she is on the seaside. Where can you go to find her?" "Okay, I get it." He walked over quickly and finally found her under a hidden reef. He crossed obstacles and walked to her side. "Ching-er, what are you doing?" Mukinjian sat on the flat stone, looked at him excitedly and said, "Xian, why are you here? Why don't you take a rest this morning?" Han Yexuan sat next to her. "My husband missed you, so I came here to bring you breakfast. You should eat quickly." She smiled evilly. "You feed me." He fed her lovingly, and the two stayed at the beach for a long time. Mukinjian looked at him. "Let's go back. Otherwise they will come to find us." "Okay, go back." He hugged her directly and stood up. She reflexively hugged his neck, and her whole body was protected in his arms. "That Xian, put me down quickly, be careful not to be seen by others. Don't be afraid, you are my wife, I will hug my wife back home and that's what it means. Put me down first, okay." He had no choice but to put her down. "What's wrong, Ching-er?" Hey, you squat down." He squatted down obediently and asked curiously, "What's wrong, Ching-er?" Mukinjian lay directly on his back and put her arms around his neck. "Haha, actually, I'm just too lazy to walk, please carry me on your back." Han Yexuan felt the softness on his back and smiled helplessly. "Okay, you can just let me carry you all the time." He slowly stood up and held her outer thighs with both hands. She lay on his gentle back. She felt extremely quiet and warm. She leaned her whole face on his back and fell asleep quietly. It seems that only by his side can I fall asleep completely peacefully. He was walking on the beach by the sea with her on his back. Is Ching'er asleep? He called her, but she didn't speak. He only heard her steady breathing, and he knew she was asleep. When he saw her sleeping, he carried her to her tent. When Luole saw it, he just pretended to be nonchalant and didn't look at them. He smiled evilly after they entered. Han Yexuan gently put her on the bed. Because she was clinging to him and unwilling to let go, he slowly lay next to her and hugged her. While she was sleeping, he reached out and gently pushed her hair to one side. Her face was completely exposed in front of him. He put his arm around her waist and kissed her cheek with satisfaction. She suddenly turned over and hugged his waist. She snorted in discomfort and reached out to pat him, almost hitting him in the face. He hugged her helplessly, but she still looked so dishonest when sleeping. Luole looked at the two people who had not come out of the tent, and he was very sensible and did not disturb their rest. Until Mukinjian woke up and opened her eyes, she saw him. She blushed and fell asleep behind him. He hugged her and said, "Little lazy pig, didn't you have a good rest yesterday?" "Yes, okay, let's get up, otherwise they will laugh at us." He had no choice but to let her go. When the two came out, Han Yexuan stayed for an hour and then left. Luole smiled mischievously, "Boss, you and your wife have such a good relationship. It didn't take long before I came to see you again." "Ahem, keep watching the screen to see how they are doing now." Received, boss. After saying that, he continued to return to his post. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 214. Chapter 214 Encountering Gangsters by Chance. The people in the special training class separated to look for food, while Muziorui and Muziao went to look for food elsewhere. They looked around and saw a river nearby. They took a closer look. The bottom of the river was clearly visible, and there were only some extremely small fish. It seemed that we could only find other things to eat. The two of them looked deep into the forest and said, "Xiao, let's go in and take a look. These are not edible." "Okay, Ari, are your injuries okay?" He laughed and said, "It's okay. My sister's medicine is very useful. I'm almost healed." "That's good, let's go in." After walking for more than half an hour, they didn't see any animals to eat. Of course, there were a lot of snakes and insects. But it is obviously impossible for them to eat snakes. After all, snakes have many parasites. Suddenly the two of them heard something moving in front of them, and they quickly climbed up the tree. Looking only at 5 people not far ahead, they were tall and burly. He has yellow hair and white hair, a high nose, and fair skin. The weapons in each person's hands don't look like good people. Listening to what they were talking about, the two of them realized that they were criminal terrorists. Mukinjian saw those people on the screen and knew what they wanted to do, so she quickly flew over. Because they were in the forest, she could only let them park outside and take Luole alone to find them. She also blocked the drones. After all, she didn't want them to see them. The two of them watched motionless as the gangsters below spoke Y language, and they stood still for the time being. "Black Panther, is it really useful for us to escape here?" A man named Black Panther has a huge Black Panther tattooed on his arm. He showed his sharp teeth with a ferocious face. "They can't find this island for the time being. We only need to hide here for a while and they will give up." One man laughed and said, "Brother Bao, you are indeed the best, you can fool those people around." "No, thanks to the Black Panther for bringing us here, otherwise, we would have been caught, but the base would have been pierced." The Black Panther looked at the area with fierce eyes. "Don't take it lightly. Even if we escape here, it won't be any better than being caught by them. Everyone still needs to be careful around them and don't be bitten by anything. Otherwise, even shouting for help will be useless. The two of them looked at them. The man named Black Panther knew a lot, and he didn't seem to be someone to be trifled with. And how many people must have been killed before this person's soul would be so black and shiny? It's really a heinous crime. If people like this continue to let it go, how many more people will be killed in the future? Who is where? Come out. The Black Panther raised his gun and roared angrily. Everyone pointed their guns behind the tree, and a long-haired man came out from behind the tree and greeted them. "Hey, I'm a good guy, don't shoot." The Black Panther looked at Muziao, who appeared strangely, with a look of shock on his face. How could this extremely good-looking man suddenly appear here? Looking at his harmless look, coupled with his overly handsome face. A good-looking man who makes the people behind the Black Panther look like they are infatuated. They all put down their guns and stared at him intently. Muziao instantly knocked down the people behind him, and their guns were directly removed. These people dared to look at his Xiaoyu like this, they were simply looking for death. Only when everyone woke up, the Black Panther immediately opened fire. Bang! The sound of gunshots quickly attracted Mukinjian and Luole, who were not far away. "Boss, they are shooting in front, do we still need to wait?" "Just take a look, don't worry, he should be able to deal with it." Luole could only nod, "Okay, boss." The Black Panther looked at Muziao, who was flying through the bullets, with a look of horror on his face. "You are not human." "I know who I am, but I know you are not a human being." The Black Panther looked at the wasted gun with an angry look on his face. "I don't care if you are a ghost or not, you are dead today. Brothers, come together and kill them both." The two of them threw away the useless knives in their hands and started fighting with the five of them with bare hands. Even though the two of them had been sealed with spiritual power by Mukinjian, they could barely handle so many people at the same time. The two handsome men worked together flawlessly, and soon the five gangsters fell to the ground, unable to resist. Luole, who was hiding aside, clapped his hands excitedly. "So beautiful." Mukinjian looked disgusted. "Why are you applauding? Why don't you go over and handcuff the person?" Luole immediately ran over and handcuffed the five gangsters. "Boss, the handcuffs are over." The people on the other side heard the gunfire and rushed over. "Captain, the gunfire is not far ahead." "Keep chasing." A group of more than a dozen people wearing green clothes immediately headed in the direction of Mukinjian. A group of men wearing special forces uniforms walked in. He looked at the people on the ground and said, "You caught them." Mukinjian walked over and said, "My students arrested you. You are from the army. You're welcome. Since they are the people you want to arrest, take them away. My students are training here, don't disturb them." The leader nodded respectfully, "Copy that, let's leave first." After saying that, she led the five gangsters out of the depths of the forest. She walked to Muziao and looked at them. Said with a serious face, "You did a good job this time, the cooperation is very good. Try your best next time." After receiving Mukinjian's praise, the two of them laughed happily. "Thank you, teacher, I will definitely work harder next time." She laughed and said, "Well, I'll go back first, teacher. Please pay attention to your safety." The two saw them leaving and continued to look for prey. Luole followed closely behind her. "Boss, your brothers are so good at martial arts. Both of them can win against gun-wielding gangsters. It's really amazing." Don't even look at whose younger brother they are. How bad can they be as my younger brother?" "Haha, the boss is right." Suddenly Luole looked confused. "Boss, you said that since we came to this island, they have encountered too many dangers. Not long ago, there were giant tigers, and now they are gangsters. Isn't this a bit too exciting?" Mukinjian thought about it and said, "Huh? It does seem to be a lot of trouble, but fortunately, I met both of them. This is also a good thing to gain experience. Boss, they are your biological brothers, right? She rolled her eyes and said, if he's not my brother, is he your brother? Why am I not treating them well? Luo touched his nose awkwardly, ahem, no. No. The boss is simply the best sister in the world. He seemed to say yes, but he was afraid that his boss would spit him out if he told the truth. After all, his boss's methods were really terrible. Humph, that's pretty much it, let's go back. The two of them got back on the plane and left the desert island. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 215. Chapter 215 Tell me my name. In order to deal with Su Jiayan's matter, Mu Qingjian needed to go back. When she went back, she lifted the seals on Mu Xiao and Mu Xiaoyui. And used spiritual consciousness to tell them not to use spiritual power unless absolutely necessary. Mu Qingjian was walking on the street when she suddenly felt a bad smell. She slowly walked to a young man's stall and picked up a 20-centimeter mahogany sword at random. Boss, how much does this little wooden sword cost? I want to buy it for my brother to play with. When the young man saw her, he was stunned and it took him a while to react. Ahem, miss, my things are not cheap. Do you have money? The price is 500,000 yuan, no bargaining. The old man next to the man immediately laughed, haha, Xiao Chao, you can buy a broken peachwood sword for 500,000 yuan. Little girl, look at my peachwood sword. My peachwood sword only costs 1,000. Do you want it? This was passed down to me from my grandfather. These are treasures, and you don't know the goods. If I didn't need money urgently, I wouldn't sell them. The young man was unhappy and scolded the old man at the stall next door. Mu Qingjian looked at him, holding a peachwood sword and jade pendant in her hand. I bought this. If I have money, I will buy it for my brother to play with. Ma Chao looked surprised. Are you here to tease me? You really have that much money? Well, swipe a card or transfer, or cash, she said still calmly. Swipe your card, Ma Chao replied subconsciously. Until his cell phone reminded him that your transfer has received 500,000 yuan. He helped her load her things in a daze, and after they left, he was still holding his phone in a daze. The old man who set up Ma Chao's stall shouted angrily, oh my god! Is that little girl a fool? She really bought that guy Ma Chao's broken mahogany sword, broken copper coin sword and a fake jade pendant. She is really rich. There's no place to spend it. Appraisers say it's fake, just ordinary peachwood and copper coin products. Ma Chao covered his card and mobile phone and ran away, ignoring the stall. After all, Mu Qingjian had already bought two things, why would he need a tattered red cloth? A few gangsters looked at each other and quietly followed Ma Chao. Before Ma Chao reached the avenue, he was blocked by two male gangsters and ran back quickly. Behind him, there were three men with malicious intentions, blocking the path with smiles. Boy, why are you running? What do you want to do? I'll call the police. Ma Chao covered his pockets and looked at them defensively. One of the yellow-haired boys laughed and said, haha, brother, he said he wanted to call the police. Humph, call the police, do you think you should call the police sometimes? The leading gangster looked at the thin Ma Chao with disdain. Stop being so wordy, hand over the card and tell me the password, otherwise the fists of my brothers will be blind. The leader of the gangsters immediately asked people to arrest him, but Ma Chao couldn't resist many people and was immediately arrested. Ma Chao vomited a mouthful of blood, the corner of his mouth was cut, and there were injuries all over his body. He refused to hand over the password to his death, which completely angered the leading gangster. He picked up the small dagger and slowly approached Ma Chao. I said, boy, don't challenge my patience, otherwise this knife will go to your neck. Life and money are so important. If you can't handle it anymore, don't blame me. Ma Chao glared at him fiercely. I don't need money, but I only need my life. I can't hand over the money. Mu Qingjian stood on the eaves, watching Ma Chao refuse to pay the money, so he had no choice but to jump from the roof to the wall. Hey, you five big men bully a little kid. What kind of skills do you have? I gave him the 500,000, so why not ask me for more? The five gangsters immediately raised their heads and looked at Mo Chenexai on the 3-meter-high wall, with expressions of surprise on their faces as to how she got up there. It's you, little girl, don't mind your own business just because you think you can climb the wall. Now go away and we pretend we haven't seen you. We only want this guy's money, the gangster said loudly and fiercely, clearly recognizing that this was the guy who paid 10,000 to Ma Chao's woman. She looked at the people under the wall expressionlessly. Let's go together. I have to take this child away today. A few people looked at each other. This pretty little girl was probably a fool. She was not that old yet and she still called others children. She jumped down from the 3-meter-high wall steadily, feeling as if it was a piece of cake. The leader looked at her and it was obvious that she was a practitioner, just a little girl. Even if they knew a little bit of martial arts, these 5 grown men couldn't beat a little girl. Wouldn't that make the other gangsters in the underworld laugh to death? One of the gangsters went up directly to teach her a lesson. Unexpectedly, before anyone could get close to her, her long legs were lifted to the wall a few meters away. The man fell to the ground in agony and was beaten on the ground. The rest of the people saw him and immediately went up. Everything is solved with one kick, simple, crude and effective. Mu Qingjian looked at the others impatiently. I said, can you still stand up? I won't let you down again. The leading gangster could only watch the fat man disappear, and had to lead the brothers away silently. Mu Qingjian directly picked up the hand that defeated Ma Chao, just like a child fighting with others and being carried back by his mother. Ma Chao felt pain all over his body. He was pulled by her and he wanted to fall but couldn't. This woman was extremely strong. Pulling half of his body, he stood reluctantly. Until I left the antique street, I took a taxi, threw the person into the car, and asked the driver to take the person to the hospital. Yes, she could see that he would be stabbed to death by a group of gangsters who came from behind because he was stubborn in the end and refused to hand over the password. In the end, he turned into an evil ghost to avenge himself and killed many people, so she would save him. Until Ma Chao was sent to the hospital, he was still confused as to why she would save him. He had obviously cheated her out of so much money, so what was he trying to do? But he thanked her. Because this is his mother's life-saving money, and when he has money, he will definitely repay her. Ma Chao looked at her and said, why did you save me? I really don't know you. Mu Qingjian looked at him and said, you are a freshman at Daihuang Academy, right? Why don't you go to school all of a sudden? Ma Chao looked wary. Who are you? How do you know that I am a student of Emperor Phoenix Academy? You don't have to worry about how I know. I'm a teacher at that school, so you don't have to be so defensive about me. Have you considered going back to school? He lowered his head. My family has no money to send me back, and I am no longer a student of Emperor Phoenix Academy. Mu Qingjian smiled and patted him. Come to school and see me tomorrow. I am Mu Qingjian, the head teacher of the special training class. Just tell me my name. What, special training class, can I go in? She nodded, yes, so if you come over tomorrow to report, I'll leave first. It wasn't until she disappeared that he took out his cell phone to check. It turned out to be the head teacher of the special training class. He almost jumped up with joy. He was lucky enough to be admitted to the special training class. Chapter 214 is under review and cannot be released for the time being. Please bear with me. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Lugo Meyer. Chapter 216. Chapter 216 Dealing with Funeral Affairs. On the second day, Mu Kinjian came to school, and Su Jiayan's parents were making a fuss in the principal's office. A woman angrily yelled, "Why did the special training class expel my daughter, and why didn't the person who hurt my daughter come forward to apologize? You are simply bullying me too much." The man said with a serious face, "Principal I hope you can give me a reasonable explanation as to why my daughter betrayed her teammates and what evidence is there. Otherwise, I will never allow you to expel her so easily. After all, she entered the special training is not easy, and our Su family cannot afford to lose face like this." "Principal," he said with a smile, "Mr. Su, don't be anxious. The head teacher of the special training class will be here soon. Whether your daughter Su Jiayan did anything wrong or not, it was all decided by Mu Kinjian, the chief instructor of the special training class. Forget it." The woman said angrily, "Then why hasn't she come yet? Does she dare not see us?" Mu Kinjian walked in slowly. "I'm here, what are you afraid of seeing? If you want to know why she was expelled, it's very simple. You can take a good look." After saying that, he picked up the memory card in his hand, inserted it into the computer, and projected it on the white cloth. She drew up the curtains in her office and turned off the lights. What was playing inside was the scene of Su Jiayan stalking Mu Xiaoyu, followed by the scene of Mu Xiaoyu trying to save her and then being pushed into the tiger's mouth by her. Her mother still refused to give up and continued to argue, "My daughter is just a weak woman. She is afraid of conditioned reflex and pushes her classmates. Isn't this normal?" Mu Kinjian sneered, "Ha, then please continue reading." The follow-up scene continued with Su Jiayan starting to scream again, hiding next to Mu Xiaoyu, and pushing him into the tiger's mouth again. She paused. "Now do you still think she did it unintentionally? Is it called fear once, but is it still called fear the second time? This kind of person is the first to be killed in the army. Teammates are not your shield to block the gun. The country's special training classes that focus on training do not need such people." Now the couple has nothing to say, and they don't have the nerve to continue to refute their daughter. The evidence is all in front of them. They retorted and made a big fuss. Everyone knew that their women were the ones who betrayed their teammates. Principal he was completely relieved after watching them leave. "Haha, Mu Yetu, you are so awesome." She pulled out the memory card and said, "I don't want to make a big fuss to give face to the Su family. If I want to cause a big embarrassment, it must be the Su family. Who would dare to contact such people?" Principal he nodded and smiled, but also felt a little sad. "That's true, but there is one less person in your special training class." Mu Kinjian sat on the chair. "What are you afraid of? It is useful to teach so many people to become successful. Otherwise, what is the use of recruiting so many people? A person like Su Jiayan will give you a headache. Alas, it's up to you. Anyway, this special training class is under your control." At this time, a security guard called. Principal he had a student named Ma Chao, and he said he wanted to see teacher Mu Kinjian. He looked at her and said, "Girl Mu, do you know Ma Chao?" "Oh, I know him. He is my new student, the one who entered my special training class." Principal he had no choice but to let him in. After a while, Ma Chao walked in nervously. As soon as he came in, he saw Mu Kinjian sitting on the chair, with a look of surprise on his face. "Mu, hello, teacher Mu, hello principal." She smiled and nodded, "Welcome back to school." Principal he looked at him and said, "Well, your name is Ma Chao, right?" She is your chief instructor and squad leader Ren Mukinjian. You can go to the special training class with her today. He said excitedly, "Thank you, teacher, I will definitely study hard." "Thank you, teacher, for giving me this opportunity." Principal, he looked appreciative. "Very good, aspiring young people should work hard. Muyetu, do you want to send him to special training?" Mukinjian stood up and said, "Yes, Principal, now that Su Jiayan's matter has been settled, I will take Ma Chao to special training." "We will leave first, Principal, you and I will do it." Ma Chao followed her nervously without saying a word. It wasn't until he got on the plane that he looked confused and said at a loss, "Teacher, don't we have to go to class? Why are we on a plane? The class is not in school." Seeing the doubt on his face, she had no choice but to explain, "This is on the way to class. The content of the class is survival in the wild." Ma Chao swallowed. He felt something was wrong. Is this a special training class or a special class? But he chose to remain silent. After all, the special training class was the envy of everyone. It was a class trained by the country and should not be any worse. Until he got off the plane, Mukinjian threw a military bag to him. She said to the people in the special training class, "Students, this is a new classmate. You should take him with you for special training." Everyone looked at Ma Chao. If he had the ability and was chosen by her, he must have some different advantages. The group of people received him warmly and explained to him their survival rules and the time of this mission. After some explanation, Ma Chao knew that Mukinjian was a devil in the special training class, and he also knew that he would live a good life in the wild for a period of time. When Luolei saw her coming back, he ran over excitedly. "Boss, you're back very quickly. I thought you wouldn't be back until tomorrow." "I'll come back after the matter is settled. Nothing happened to them while I was away." "There is no boss. They are busy hunting and surviving every day, so they don't encounter anything bad." "Ah, that's good." At dinner time, someone else brought food to Mukinjian and the others. Manager Lu looked at her and said with respect, "Madam President, the President asked me to tell you that he has something to do and cannot come to accompany you today. He asked you to have a good rest and remember to take care of yourself. And these dishes are cooked by the President himself. Please enjoy the dinner cooked for you, madam." Luolei yelled mischievously, "Wow, boss, you are so happy, I'm envious." As he was coaxing, the Special Forces soldiers on the side also started to coax, which made her feel embarrassed. "Ahem, okay, let's eat your food." She stood and said with a smile, "I'm sorry to trouble you today, so you should go back first. Be careful on the road." Manager Lu smiled politely and said, "You're welcome, then you can enjoy it slowly and we'll come back tomorrow." After saying that, he took the people away from the island. Thanks to Mukinjian, Luolei and the others ate 5-star meals 3 times a day. They all suspected that they were not on a mission, but on vacation on a small island. The special training class on the side was not so good. Although their dinner had meat, it was tasteless. But in order not to go hungry, they had to eat, and they could barely survive. It rained again at night, and strong winds raged outside the cave. Along with the howling of wolves, the people in the special training class were awakened. Everyone got up and turned on the fire to keep themselves warm and scare away wild beasts. The girls were sitting together, shivering from the cold, really chilled by the sudden drop in temperature. Everyone gathered around the fire to keep warm. This night was probably going to be a sleepless night. Ma Chao experienced how difficult it is to survive in the wild on his first day here. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 217. Chapter 217. Is it good to be a husband? Because Mukinjian is back. Muziorui and Muzio's spiritual power was blocked again, so they naturally knew it was her. but they don't intend to use spiritual power when they come to practice, otherwise such training will be meaningless. A group of people were sitting in a cave. As the howling of wolves got closer and closer, they knew the seriousness of the matter. Mu Xiao took out his knife and said, "Everyone, take up your weapons. The wolves may be attacking us." Everyone picks up the knife. Although they are afraid, they must face the current emergency bravely. Luo looked at the screen nervously. "Boss, there are so many wolves outside. What should we do with them? Should we rescue them?" Mu Qing sat on the chair without changing her expression, looking at them being surrounded by wolves on the screen in front of her. There are just a dozen wolves, and 15 of them can't handle it, so what else can they do? No one needs to help them, let them figure it out on their own. Everyone had no choice but to sit there and do nothing. After all, they were under her control. What she said was an order. They could only obey but not resist. "Ah!" The leading wolf howled. A group of wolves rushed towards them ferociously, and everyone slashed at them with knives. Girls tried to protect themselves behind the boys, but they still couldn't avoid being bitten by the wolf. They could only slash at the wolf. The wolf was screamed in pain and became more and more irritable. After more than 10 minutes of fighting, the wolves were finally wiped out, and everyone suffered some injuries. However, in order to avoid infection, the wound can only be cleaned with cold boiled water. No one said that they wanted to quit the special training class. Ma Chao saw that everyone was injured. The only ones who were not injured were Mu Xiaoyui and Mu Xiaoyu, but half of the wolves were killed by them. He covered the wound and said, "My family is a Chinese medicine practitioner. I know some medical skills. We need some herbs to treat injuries. Can you go with me to find the herbs?" Mu Xiaoyui looked outside. "It's too late now, and there are many dangers in the forest at night. Let's wait until daybreak to find it again." Ma Chao nodded. "Okay, that's all." He grabbed a handful of plant ashes from the fire and sprinkled it on the wound, which could only temporarily stop the bleeding. Everyone saw him throwing ashes on the wound with a blank look on his face. "That Ma Chao, why did you make the wound so dirty? It won't be washed away." Ma Chao smiled helplessly and said, "There is no way. My injury is a bit deep. If I can't stop the bleeding, I can only use this method. Plant ash has a hemostatic effect on the wound, but because the particles are small, it will also contaminate the wound. The bleeding has been stopped. But the plant ash has been stuck to the wound and it will be difficult to clean, so you don't need to learn how to stop bleeding." Everyone looked at their wounds and saw that they were no longer bleeding, so they did not follow his example. Luo looked at him with admiration. "Boss, he knows a lot. His injury is the most serious, and I'm afraid he won't survive until dawn. He also knows how to use plant ash to heal his wounds, which is not bad." "It's not bad, but the strength is too poor. Only 2 of the 15 people were not injured, the others were injured. It seems that they still need to practice their abilities." Luo nodded and said, "Boss is right. When they return from this experience, I will definitely train them well." The group of people took care of the wolves on the ground and covered the blood stains left by the wolves on the ground with plant ashes. "You guys should rest first. After all, you are all injured, so we will guard you," Mu Xiaoyui said coldly. "Okay, let's go and rest for a while. Thank you for your hard work. If you are sleepy, remember to wake us up to change the guard." Apart from the sounds of other animals all night, there was nothing much going on. Mu Qingjian sat in front of the screen in the tent, watching the 3 of them looking for medicinal materials for the team, and found that Ma Chao knew a lot of medicinal materials. She looked at him with admiration, and then covered her eyes with a pair of big hands. "Qing you've been staring at other men all morning. Are they as good looking as me? You don't even think about me, and you're so fascinated by them that I didn't even know you were here." Han Yexuan held her face and forced her to look at his face. Do you have a good-looking husband? Ching you don't care about others. She opened her big eyes and murmured, it looks good, I won't look at it anymore. He received a satisfactory answer and kissed her red lips. Yes. Good wife. After a while, she blushed and pushed him away. You actually used charm on me. There is nothing serious this morning. Ching how can you say that to me? I'm so good looking. How can you say it's a charm spell when you're stunned? She snorted coldly, don't I want to lose face? Well, it's the husband's fault. He held her in his arms and said, Ching did you miss me? We haven't seen each other for a long time. She was stunned for a while. Well, it seems like it's only been a day. For a long time, I want you to be tied to me and I don't want to be separated for a second. Mukingjian had no choice but to hug him and give him a kiss before she looked satisfied. Looking at the sun coming out, she put on her swimsuit. Xian, the sun is nice today, let's go to the beach to play. Han Yexuan looked at her swimsuit and said, your clothes are too revealing. You can go to the beach to play in the clothes you just wore. There are only men outside. How can I put that dress into the sea? Is my swimsuit very revealing? I feel very conservative already. No, there's another man here. Finally, she put on some light clothes with a look of helplessness. Tisk tisk, jealousy, it's okay now. He nodded with satisfaction, yeah. It's almost done, except that the legs are still exposed. She smiled helplessly and said, you're jealous even if you show off your lower leg. That's so overbearing. Okay, let's go play. Han Yexuan went to pick up Luo Lei's surfboard. Ching do you know how to surf? She casually picked up the surfboard placed aside and said with an arrogant look, you will know if I can play with it if you compare it. Okay, if Ching loses, remember to go back and stay with me. Small problem, let's go. The scene of the two surfing on the waves made Luo Lei excited and wanted to try it, but he couldn't beat the two of them. He looked at her and said, Ching you are quite good. I didn't expect you to be so good at playing. It's okay, I'll leave first then. In the end, Mukingjian still lost. Seeing him smiling so happily, she kicked him into the sea. Haha, I told you not to let me go, now you know if you were wrong. In the end, he grabbed her with his big hand and pulled her into the sea. Ching if you want to bathe in the sea with your husband, just say so and I will satisfy you. I don't want to be with you, he said and dived into the sea alone. Han Yexuan followed closely behind him. If Luo Lei and the others could see them in the sea, they would find that they could open their eyes and breathe in the sea. It's a pity that they were far away and couldn't see what the two of them were doing. The two were walking hand in hand on the bottom of the sea. The water seemed to be separated, which did not affect their date at all. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 218. Chapter 218 Hot Searches. A week later, the special training class finally ended its week of survival mode. When they returned to school, they all felt alive. She handed them over to Luo Lei and asked them to practice physical training. Their training was just the beginning. When Mukingjian finally returned home, she was severely punished by Han Yexuan. She didn't even have to go out of her room all day long, so she just stayed with him as promised yesterday. What a mistake on her part. The next day, Dandan, who returned to the villa, saw her and ran into her arms. She stretched out her hands to catch them. Master, master, you are finally back, she rubbed her face, very happy. Mukingjian touched their heads and said, during my absence these days, have you been obedient outside? Dandan and Juhu said that they were very obedient and seemed extremely well behaved. She came to the third floor and watched Mu Xiaoyui and Mu Xiao playing without disturbing them. Go back to your room and log into Weibo. As soon as I logged in, All the news and public opinions about Soo Jae-in made a fuss. There is also a hot search on Weibo about Mu Xiao, a hot search about him kicking and injuring her. Soo Jae-in looked aggrieved in the trending video, saying that she was injured because her classmates kicked her, and she broke several ribs. Her class teacher was his biological sister, so she helped her brother expel her. Many people in the comments sided with her. After all, she looked like a victim. Oh my God. I didn't expect this man to be such a person and kick people like this. This boy is young and his behavior is bad. It is simply unreasonable that such a person can enter the special training class. This is the inside story. Daking is protecting his own younger brother, and such a person is worthy of being the head teacher of a special training class. I think he is a boy and would not intentionally hurt people like this. There must be something behind it. I am afraid the person upstairs saw that he was too handsome, so he said such mindless words. She logged into Weibo directly and posted a Weibo post. Such a person should be treated lightly. There is also my younger brother who only I can bully. They are a group of indiscriminate keyboard warriors. They go to the hospital for examination when their eyesight is not working. They are ugly and do mischief. Later, she sent a photo of herself with Mu Xiao and Mu Xiaoyui, indicating that they were her biological brothers. Everyone looked at Mu Qingjian hugging the two boys, who looked shy. And she looked confident and calm, mysterious and beautiful, just like a queen. Ah, Mu Sushan, I love you, we always believe in you. Woohoo, husband Mu is handsome again. Our Mu Shen is so beautiful and our brothers are so handsome, so what does Soo Jae-in mean? She deserves to be kicked by our brothers. I'll just say it. Such a good-looking person should not kick anyone casually. Many people looked at the good looks of the three siblings and became fans of her. Those who stand by Soo Jae-in's side today are basically the Navy and her brainless fans. Are Mu Qingjian's fans all crazy fans? What's the use of being handsome? Her brother is not cruel. Oh my God. Can looking good hurt someone? Our union is hurt, please Mu Qingjian give us an explanation. People are doing it, but God is watching. Please ask Mu Qingjian and her sister to apologize to Soo Jae-in. She looked at Soo Jae-in, who was still unaware of life and death, and watched her continue to work. Soo Jae-in looked confident as she saw many people fighting for her. Mu Qingjian, Mu Xiao, what can you do? There are still not many people on my side. You have deleted the video. Let me see what you do. If you dare to fire me, don't even think about it. She laughed with a smug look on her face. Soo Jae-in's father looked at her Weibo post with a surprised look on his face. Are you crazy? Why don't you tell me if you are sick? How could I have a stupid daughter like you? Do you think there will be no backup if she deletes it? She looked at her father, who suddenly changed his expression, and picked up the tablet with a puzzled look on his face. Dad, Mom said she had deleted the video of me deliberately hurting Mu Xiaoyui, so she definitely wouldn't leave a backup copy, so what's wrong with me posting it like this? He felt like he was going to be to death. This is nonsense. Sure enough, in the next video, I saw a video sent by Mu Qingjian, which was exactly the video of her recommending Mu Xiaoyui. She looked horrified. How could this happen? Why is there still a video? I'm done. It turns out that it was Soo Jae-in who harmed her classmates. You, a vicious woman, dare to lie to others. Is this the so-called evil person who complains first and is shameless? Where is your face? OMG. How dare you blame my Mu Sushan's brother for being the scapegoat, you woman. I just want to say, well played. Although Mu Qingjian is not on Weibo, she has a huge number of fans who follow her. She was scolded so much that even closing Weibo was useless. My mobile phone was bombarded by fans, and I couldn't even stay in the hospital in the end. In the end, he was sent abroad by the Su family, thus avoiding the turmoil. And Mu Kinjian gained a lot of fans because of this. After all, everyone knows her legend. Many people were also fans of Mu Xiaoyui and Mu Xiaoyu, and they all asked her about their brothers' Weibos. It turned out that they did not have Weibos, and everyone looked disappointed. However, she still complied with the requests of her fans and took some photos and videos of them and posted them on Weibo. The female fans were so excited that they confessed their love for them one after another. But they didn't express their feelings. After all, they didn't like girls and were afraid of breaking their hearts. Han Yexuan saw the photo of the first man posted on her Weibo, and instantly became jealous. Qing shouldn't I be the man you should post on Weibo? How do you post about Xiao and Xiaoyui? Isn't this a fan request? I agreed to it, and you're jealous. Isn't my brother your brother? He hugged her with his big hands and said. Qing smiled. She laughed obediently, and he took a photo of the 9-square grid with his mobile phone and sent it to her Weibo. Talk about the content. Sure enough, my husband is the prettiest, my brother is still a little behind. Mu Kinjian couldn't laugh or cry when she saw the content. Why don't you post it like this? It feels a bit nymphomaniacal. He hugged her tightly and looked at her with a smile, as if he would eat her immediately if she dared to say no. Really? Could it be that what my husband told me was not the truth? Ahem, it's the truth. Xian is the most handsome. None of them are as handsome as my husband. He gently touched her head and said, Qing it's good that you know. I'll forgive you for posting photos of other men on Weibo this time. As soon as the photo of the two was taken together, fans went crazy. The photos of these two people went directly to the top of the hot search list, and they were directly called the magical couple by fans, and their number of fans increased rapidly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 219. Chapter 219, Practicing the Ghost Way. When Mu Kinjian was at school, she suddenly received a call from Yin Kinja. She cried so hard that she couldn't even speak clearly. It was Zhang Zingrui's explanation that she knew something had happened to their child, and she hurried over. When she returned to the hospital, their youngest son was diagnosed again and again, and all the doctors declared his death to be mysterious and without cause or symptoms. When the two of them received this notice, they were all stunned. They watched their children being pushed out. Old man Zhang looked at his great-grandson who was covered with white cloth. He couldn't accept this reality at all. He instantly aged by more than 10 years. Yin Kinja was so sad that she fell into a coma. Yaya. Zhang Zingrui's eyes were red and he could no longer speak. When Mu Kinjian arrived, she quickly woke her up. Xiao, are you okay? But she was like a rag doll without a soul at the moment. Her eyes were gray and she was so quiet that it was scary, as if she didn't hear what she said. When the doctor asked Zhang Zingrui to sign the death agreement, the nurses planned to push the child's body to the morgue. Yin Kinja finally made some movement, and she ran over like crazy. Don't touch my child, don't touch him, he's not dead, she's just asleep. She climbed up to the child's side on the bed, pulled off the white cloth, hugged his body and snuggled next to the child. Everyone was shocked by her actions and she went crazy. Wow, so touching. The poor little guy, so young, just left. The doctor asked the child's mother to stay with him for more time. If he stops her, she will go crazy, old man Zhang said with a sad look on his face. She stroked the child's face, pressed her face gently against his, and whispered in his ear, "Baby, you said you wanted to stay with your mother all the time, you can't sleep in anymore." We said okay, don't leave mom, she will always be by your side. Don't be afraid, be good, mom will be by your side. After finishing speaking, She kissed his cheek. Didn't the baby say that he likes his mother the most? Baby. So everyone present was red-eyed, especially the mother, who cried. There was a lot of crying at the scene, and I couldn't control my emotions. Mukinjian looked at her who had fallen into silence in her own world, and hugged her directly. Xiao, wake up, I am Mukinjian, and I will save your child. Yinkinja felt a warm breath, soothing herself deep in her soul. She slowly regained consciousness, her body gained divine power and returned to its normal status. She closed her eyes, opened them again, and hugged her quickly. Xiao Yanyan, the baby is dead, Weavuo, please save my baby. Old man Zhang came over and said, Girl Mu, can the child be saved? Mu Qingjian looked at the child, shook her head helplessly and sighed, I'm sorry, I can't save him because he is already dead. Yinkinja fainted completely after hearing this. Zhang Xingrui had no choice but to pick her up, feeling extremely sad. Qingjian, thank you, I will take her out slowly. She looked at the soul next to her and said, Little guy, do you know you are dead? He raised his head and looked at her with a sad look on his face. Aunt Mu, am I really dead? I don't want to leave mom and dad. Although he is only 3 years old, he also knows what separation between life and death means. After all, he is also very smart. He has been able to see different worlds since he was a child, so he knows that he is dead. Mu Qingjian touched his head and said, Xiao Fengfeng, you are dead and can't stay with your parents anymore. So do you want Aunt Mu to send you to reincarnation? After all, you are still young and you can still gain life again. Zhang Yifeng raised his head and said, Aunt Mu, I have seen ghosts since I was a child, but I didn't tell my grandfather or my parents. I know that ghosts long for reincarnation, but Xiaofeng still wants to stay with his parents. Aunt Mu, my mother said you are very powerful, can you let me stay with my mother? I don't want to be someone else's child, I still want to be my mother's child, I don't want to see my mother feel sad for me. Mu Qingjian saw his firm eyes, and she didn't want to see Yinkinja and the others lose their happiness. She knelt down, looked at his face, and said with a smile, Xiaofeng, although Aunt Mu is a god, she cannot save the dead. After all, if I do this, it will disrupt the balance of the world, but Aunt Mu, it can help you practice the ghost way. The journey to practice the ghost path is very hard, are you willing to do it? Zhang Yifeng nodded firmly, Aunt Mu, as long as she can live, Xiaofeng is willing to stay with her mother no matter how hard or tiring she is. Good boy, Aunt Mu will help you. You are a very talented child. You will become a by cultivating ghosts. You must remember not to hurt innocent people and be a righteous person. Aunt Mu, I can do it. In this way, Zhang Yifeng became the first ghost to correct the Tao, and later went through all kinds of hardships to become the first ghost ancestor in the divine world. I won't say more about this later. When Yinkinja woke up again, her whole body was numb and she sat stupidly on the hospital bed. She didn't speak no matter who spoke. At this time, Mu Qingjian walked in. She suddenly felt something and raised her head. After seeing her, she lowered her head in despair. She walked to her side and said, Xiao, be happy. Xiao Fengfeng will always grow up by your side. She waved her hand, and Yinkinja saw Zhang Yifeng standing next to her. Her eyes instantly filled with tears, and she called him hoarsely. Baby, is it you? He raised his head and smiled sweetly. Mom, don't cry. Xiaofeng will always be by your side. She hurriedly got out of bed and hugged him. Baby, you finally returned to your mother, woohoo. He touched Yinkinja's head sensibly. Mom, don't cry, I'm still alive, and I will always be alive. Zhang Xingrui and old man Zhang saw Zhang Yifeng coming back to life and hugged him excitedly. Seeing them like this, Mu Qingjian shattered their beautiful thoughts. Xiao, Xiaofeng is not alive. He appears in front of you as a ghost now. but he will make his debut as a ghost cultivator, and he will slowly cultivate into a human body again. Old man Zhang looked at her. Mu Yetu, doesn't Xiaofeng need to be reincarnated? No need, because he now wants to practice the ghost way and continue to live in the world as a ghost. Yinkinja also woke up at this time. Baby, you go and be reincarnated as a human being again. Mom doesn't want to see you acting like a ghost. Mom, I have chosen to become a ghost cultivator, and I will be fine and Mu will protect me, so don't feel sad for Xiaofeng. Mu Qingjian walked out of the room and let them chat. A few hours later, they completely accepted Zhang Yifeng as a ghost cultivator. Since he is a ghost now, they can neither teach him nor raise him, so Zhang Yifeng will practice with her from today on. Yinkinja hugged her and said, Xiao Yanyan, Xiaofeng will be left to you. I am very happy. Because I will be very happy when the child is with you. I know that he will be extraordinary in the future. Thank you Xiao Yanyan. You're welcome, we are friends, don't worry. I will protect him. Until she took Zhang Yifeng away, she happily lay in Zhang Zingrui's arms and cried. This was a sincere cry of joy. End of this chapter. The contemporary academic god is secretly a charlatan. Author, Luo Meyer. Chapter 220. Chapter 220 Shocking. Mu Qingjian brought Zhang Yifeng back home. Han Yexuan was a little surprised to see the child beside her. Isn't this kid Qing or your friend's? How could he? She nodded and said, yes. He is Yaya's son. Is there any way you can let him live in the sun? He is still so young. I don't want him to spend his childhood hiding in the dark world. There is a way, but I need some time. That's good, I'll be relieved if there's a way. She taught him how to practice every night, and arranged a room for him independently. Old man Zhang and Yinkinja would come over from time to see him and stay with him. They can slowly accept days like this. After all, him being alive is the best spiritual support for them. A few days later, Han Yexuan gave him a pill to take, and Zhang Yifeng slowly materialized. When he appeared in the sun, Yinkinja burst into tears with excitement. Baby, you can stand in the sun. He walked to her side and said, Mom, I will always watch over you. Ever since she became a mother, she has been sad to see this scene, but fortunately it is considered complete. Zhang Zingrui's family moved directly to Bo's house in order to see their children every day, which was much more convenient. Mu Qingjian looked at Yinkinja. Yaya, have you considered having another child? She shook her head and looked at her eldest daughter and her youngest son playing in the distance. She had no idea that her brother was not a human being. I am satisfied if I don't have any more children. Having children is already good. Seeing that she really came out, she was completely relieved. And Zhang Yifeng plays with Dandan, Juhu, and the others every day at Bo's house, and he is not bored at all. After all, they will take him to see a lot, so his personality is obviously much more cheerful than before. As parents, Yinkinja and the others naturally felt it, so they were also happy that he had changed and became more and more cheerful and lively. The people in the special training class haven't seen Mu Qingjian for a few days, but they have endless training every day and are exhausted every day. On this day, the special training class rarely had to practice, and everyone was happily chatting in the classroom. At this moment, she appeared in a military uniform, and everyone was obviously shocked. Su Heron looked at her in surprise. Oh my God! Teacher, why are you back? She smiled dangerously. Oh, classmate Su Heron seems to like me coming back, so are you disappointed? He was scared to death and shook his head desperately. Teacher, you are wronged. I didn't think so, so I am just amazed. Teacher, you are so handsome in your military uniform today. Everyone saw him turned upside down, looking like a flatterer, and they all gloated and snickered. Mu Qingjian ignored his flattery and said, What we are training today is your marksmanship. We all change into military uniforms in 15 minutes and gather at the training base. Those who are late will run 10 laps around the training base and be dismissed. Run quickly." So people hurried to the locker room to change their clothes. After all, it takes 20 minutes to walk to the training base. It would take less than half the time to run, plus changing clothes. Everyone immediately went to change clothes as quickly as possible. Logole saw the admiring looks on their faces and said, "Boss, you are still awesome." Just one sentence scared them so much that they ran away without a trace. "Okay, stop boasting, let's go over there." Received from the boss. The two of them drove there, so Logole stood at the gate of the base early with the clock. The first ones to arrive were still Muzaiorui and Muzaiau. As the countdown lasted 3 minutes, the girls also arrived one after another. So she did not punish them, but took them to the training ground inside the training base. Logole walked to the table and said, "Next, I will teach you how to assemble the gun. I will only teach you twice." He taught them slowly and in detail the first time, and quickly the second time. The boys were instantly ready to move, and then they went on stage to assemble the guns. It seems simple, but it is not possible to assemble it yourself. As time goes by, they have learned to assemble their own guns. They are training at the training base one by one, and no one dares to let down their guard. After all, Mukinjian couldn't just let them practice shooting. This matter was definitely not that simple. Sure enough, after they had trained for an afternoon, Logole told them that in half a month they would have a simulated battlefield competition with other freshmen special training classes. This will be about the military ranks obtained by each special training class. The top 3 individuals in the gunfight simulation competition will receive the rank of sergeant major from 1st to 4th level. As soon as these words came out, everyone became excited. After all, who doesn't want to bring glory to his family? They have endless training every day, and they are completely out of temper after being trained by Mukinjian. For a whole morning, I spent all my listening time resting in my own lounge. It couldn't be too boring, but it made her discover interesting games, which she is more interested in now, so she couldn't help but play until lunchtime. With her aura of 1.8 meters, of course she is not 1.8 meters herself, but she is almost 1.8 meters when she puts on shoes. Among women, she is considered super tall, so she is quite satisfied with her height. Along the way, the students were particularly surprised when they saw Mukinjian's brooch hanging from the special training class instructor's brooch. This tall beauty turned out to be the chief instructor of the freshman special training class, which simply refreshed their visual nerves. Those long, slender, white legs show off her curvy figure. She also has satin-like jet black hair blowing in the wind, slender phoenix eyebrows, a pair of eyes like stars and bright moons, a delicate nose, slightly pink cheeks, red lips like dripping cherries, a flawless face with melon seeds, and a tender her skin, as smooth as snow, was extremely beautiful. She smiled at them, then walked into the elevator of the cafeteria, and went straight to the top floor. If she wanted to eat, she must eat the best. There are countless teachers and students stunned, so a beautiful beauty, let's see the ghosts with a smile. This is the first time she has appeared in the eyes of ordinary classes. The other teachers in ordinary classes have probably never even seen what she looks like. After all, the teaching building of their special training class is far away from the ordinary classes. There is also a canteen there, but after all, it is not as rich as the canteen here. She doesn't need to worry about money at all. After all, she has no money to spend. The students in the cafeteria on the 9th floor looked confused when they saw Mukinjian's appearance. She turned out to be a teacher and they had never seen her before. You must know that the 8th floor is exclusively for teachers, and they are all 5-star chefs. There is no charge, it is provided to teachers for free, and the food can be said to be very good. Although it is not as exquisite and luxurious as the 9th floor, few teachers come here to eat. Mu Xiao and Mu Xiao saw that Mu Qingjian attracted attention as soon as she came up, so they waved to her. She ordered her favorite seafood, steak, etc. They were basically meat dishes. The chef was so frightened that he doubted his life, eating so much by himself. After swiping his card, he walked towards them and sat next to him with a smile. End of this chapter.